The sun was setting over the dusty streets of Capernaum, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the ground. I remember the day vividly. The air was thick with the scent of fish and the distant murmur of the sea. My name is Ezra, a fisherman by trade. But on this day, my life was about to change in ways I could never have imagined. I was mending my nets by the shore when I saw him. Jesus of Nazareth, the man whose name was on everyone's lips, was walking towards me. His presence was magnetic, drawing eyes from all around. There was an aura about him, not of this world, yet so deeply rooted in the very earth he walked upon. As he approached, I couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and curiosity. Why would a man, known for miracles and teachings, come to this simple fishing village? What could he possibly want with a man like me, whose hands were calloused from years of pulling nets from the sea? "Ezra," he called out, his voice calm yet carrying a weight that seemed to resonate with something deep within me. I stood, my heart pounding, nets forgotten at my feet. "Follow me," he said, his eyes piercing through to my soul, "and I will make you fishers of men." The simplicity of his words belied the profound shift they would bring. Here I was, a man of the sea, being called to a purpose I did not yet understand. What did it mean to be a fisher of men? And why me, of all people? As I looked into his eyes, I saw not just a man, but a promise, a challenge, and an invitation to something greater than the life I had known. The nets, the boats, the daily struggle for survival, they all seemed to fade into insignificance. I hesitated for only a moment before nodding, my voice barely a whisper. Yes, I will follow. The decision felt both monumental and inevitable, like stepping into a current that would carry me to unknown shores. As I turned to gather my things, my brother Simon, who had been watching from a distance, approached with a furrowed brow. "Ezra, what are you doing? We have nets to mend, fish to catch. This isn't the time for whatever this is." I looked at him, then back at Jesus, who stood patiently, his gaze unwavering. "Simon, this man, he's different. He's offering something more than just fish. I can't explain it, but I must go." Simon's face softened, though confusion still lingered in his eyes. "And what of our livelihood? Our family depends on us." The weight of responsibility tugged at me, yet the pull towards Jesus was stronger. "I don't know what will happen, Simon, but I feel in my heart that this is right. Perhaps, in time, you'll see it too." With a heavy heart, I left my nets and followed Jesus, the dust of Capernaum rising with each step. The village life continued around us, but for me, everything had changed. As we walked, Jesus spoke little, but his silence was filled with purpose. We passed through the marketplace where vendors called out their wares, the sounds of bartering and laughter filling the air. Yet, amidst this daily bustle, a quiet tension began to form. People whispered as we passed, some with reverence, others with skepticism. We stopped briefly at the well where a group of women were drawing water. One of them, Miriam, a friend of my mother, looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Ezra, where are you going with him?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "To follow a new path, Miriam," I replied, unsure of how much to reveal. "Jesus has called me to something greater." Her expression shifted from concern to curiosity. "And what of your family? Your responsibilities?" The question echoed Simon's, and for a moment, doubt crept in. But then Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that felt like an anchor in a storm. "Ezra has chosen to seek the kingdom of heaven first," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. "All else will be provided." Miriam nodded, though her eyes still held questions. As we moved on, I felt the weight of my decision more acutely. The path ahead was unclear, filled with the promise of spiritual wealth, but shadowed by the uncertainty of leaving behind the tangible securities of my former life. The sun had fully set by now, and the stars began to twinkle above, a silent witness to my journey. The night air was cool, and the village was settling into its evening routines. Yet, within me, a fire had been lit, a flame of faith and purpose that would guide me through the coming challenges. As we continued our journey, the familiar sounds of Capernaum faded into the background, replaced by the soft crunch of our footsteps on the dirt path. The darkness enveloped us, but Jesus seemed to know the way as if guided by an unseen light. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, oscillating between the comfort of the known and the allure of the divine call. We walked in silence for a while, until we reached a small grove just outside the village. Here, Jesus finally spoke, his voice breaking the night's quietude. "Ezra, do you understand the weight of your decision?" I swallowed hard, the gravity of his question settling upon me. I believe so, Rabbi, but I confess there is much I do not understand." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "To follow me is to embrace a life of service, sacrifice, and often solitude. You will face opposition, not just from the world, but sometimes from those you love." His words struck a chord of fear within me. The image of Simon's confused face flashed before my eyes, and the thought of my family's reaction to my sudden departure weighed heavily. "What if I fail?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jesus turned to face me, his expression one of compassion. "Faith, Ezra, is not about never falling, but about rising each time you do. You will not walk this path alone. I am with you, and so are others who have chosen this way." At that moment, another figure emerged from the shadows. It was John, one of Jesus' closest followers, his face illuminated by the moon's gentle glow. "Ezra," he greeted warmly, "I've heard much about your decision. It's not easy, but it's worth every step." John's presence was comforting, a testament to the community I was joining. However, the comfort was short-lived as the night brought its first test. A group of men from the village, led by a local merchant named Eli, approached us. Eli was known for his skepticism and often clashed with those who spoke of Jesus' teachings. "Ezra, what madness has taken you?" Eli's voice was sharp, cutting through the night. "You abandon your nets, your family, for what? For tales and promises." I felt the tension rise, my heart racing. Jesus stepped forward, his presence calming the air. "Eli, peace be with you. Ezra has chosen a path of faith, not madness. Would you not seek something greater than the daily toil?" Eli scoffed, his face contorted with disdain. "Greater than toil? We live by the sweat of our brow, not by idle dreams." The confrontation was a stark reminder of the opposition I would face. Jesus' words were gentle yet firm. "Eli, the kingdom of heaven is not about escaping work, but about finding purpose in it. Ezra seeks to serve in a way that benefits all." The merchant shook his head, unconvinced, and with a final sneer, he and his group retreated back towards the village. The encounter left a bitter taste, a forewarning of the challenges ahead. As we resumed our walk, John placed a hand on my shoulder. "You see, Ezra, the path is not always smooth. But remember, every challenge is an opportunity to grow in faith." The night deepened, and we reached a small, secluded spot where a few others were gathered around a small fire. Here, I was introduced to Mary Magdalene, whose eyes held stories of transformation, and Thomas, whose skepticism was tempered with a deep desire for truth. Sitting by the fire, I listened to their tales of encounters with Jesus, each story weaving a tapestry of divine intervention and human struggle. Mary spoke of her liberation from darkness, Thomas of his doubts and subsequent belief. Their words painted a picture of a life not just of miracles, but of profound personal change. As the fire crackled, Jesus spoke again. "Ezra, remember, to be a fisher of men is to cast your net into the hearts of others, to draw them closer to the light. It requires patience, understanding, and above all, love." The night was long, filled with teachings, prayers, and the quiet strength of companionship. Yet, as dawn approached, the reality of my new life began to set in. I was no longer just Ezra the fisherman. I was now Ezra, a disciple, stepping into a world where faith would be my guide, and love my net. The journey was just beginning, and the challenges were many, but with each step, I felt a growing conviction that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As dawn broke, casting a soft golden hue over the landscape, the group around the fire began to stir. The night had been a crucible, forging a new resolve within me, yet the morning light brought with it the stark reality of my choices. The fire had dwindled to embers, mirroring the fading warmth of the previous night's fellowship. Jesus stood, his silhouette framed against the rising sun, and his voice, though soft, carried the weight of purpose. "Today, we must go to Bethsaida. There is much work to be done." The mention of Bethsaida, a nearby town known for its bustling market and skeptical populace, sent a ripple of tension through the group. John, ever the supportive companion, leaned in, his voice low. "Bethsaida is not like Capernaum, Ezra. The people there are hardened by life's trials, less open to the message of hope." I nodded, the gravity of our mission settling upon me. We gathered our few belongings, and as we set out, the path seemed to narrow, the world closing in around us. The journey was quiet, each step a testament to the commitment we had made. Upon reaching Bethsaida, the town was already alive with activity. The marketplace buzzed with vendors and buyers, the air thick with the scent of spices and the clamor of commerce. We moved through the crowd, Jesus leading with an assuredness that seemed to part the sea of people before us. Our first stop was at the town's well, a communal hub where news and gossip flowed as freely as the water. Here, Jesus began to speak, his voice not raised, yet it carried, drawing listeners like moths to a flame. He spoke of the kingdom of heaven, of love, forgiveness, and the transformation of the heart. I watched, my heart pounding, as faces around us shifted from indifference to curiosity, from skepticism to contemplation. But not all were receptive. A group of local leaders, their robes marking their status, approached with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Teacher," one of them, a man named Levi, called out, his tone sharp, "what authority do you have to speak of such matters? Are you not just another wandering preacher?" Jesus turned to him, his gaze steady. My authority comes not from man, but from the one who sent me. I speak of what I have seen and heard. Levi scoffed, his skepticism palpable. And what of the laws we uphold, the traditions we follow? You speak of change, but at what cost? The question hung in the air, a challenge not just to Jesus, but to all of us. I felt the weight of my own doubts, the fear of what following this path might truly mean. Jesus paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd that had gathered, his voice calm yet imbued with an undeniable authority. The cost, Levi, is the shedding of old ways that bind the spirit, not the heart. I speak not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it with love and understanding. Levi's eyes narrowed, his skepticism turning into a challenge. And if we do not accept this new way, what then? Jesus' response was gentle, yet it carried the weight of truth. Those who choose to remain in the shadow of the old will find comfort in what they know, but they will miss the light of what could be. The choice is yours, as it is for all. The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others whispering their dissent. I could feel the tension, the crossroads of belief and tradition clashing in the hearts of those around us. It was then that a young woman, her face marked by hardship, pushed her way through the crowd. She was known as Leah, a widow with a child, struggling to make ends meet. "Rabbi," she called out, her voice trembling yet filled with hope, "I have heard of your teachings. Can you truly offer a life beyond the daily struggle?" Jesus turned to her, his eyes softening. "Leah, the kingdom of heaven is not a place of escape from life's trials, but a way to live through them with a new purpose. Your daily bread will come not just from your toil, but from the abundance of God's love." Leah's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of a dawning realization. She knelt, her hands clasping Jesus' robe. "Then I choose to follow this path, Rabbi. Teach me." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some were moved by her faith, others by the simplicity of her request. But it was this moment that shifted the atmosphere. Levi, watching this exchange, seemed to soften, his skepticism giving way to a contemplative silence. As the crowd began to disperse, Jesus turned to me, his eyes piercing yet comforting. "Ezra, today you've seen the seeds of change. Not all will accept, but those who do will find a new way of living." We continued through Bethsaida, stopping at various points where Jesus healed the sick, spoke to the downtrodden, and challenged the self-righteous. Each encounter was a lesson, each healing a testament to his power and love. As the day wore on, we found ourselves at the outskirts of the town, where a large crowd had gathered, drawn by the rumors of Jesus' presence. Here, amidst the dust and the heat, Jesus began to teach in parables, stories that seemed simple yet held profound truths. "The kingdom of heaven," Jesus began, his voice resonating with a warmth that seemed to soothe the parched earth, "is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants, and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches." As he spoke, I watched the faces of the crowd, some furrowed in concentration, others lighting up with understanding. The parable was clear. From small beginnings could come great things, a lesson not just for the crowd, but for me as well. My journey, starting with a simple call by the sea, was now bearing fruit in ways I hadn't imagined. The day's teachings ended as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows once again, this time over the faces of those who had listened. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a sense of hope and possibility that lingered even as the day came to a close. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.